They're beautiful, they're iconic, and somehow they're one bad mowing schedule away from extinction. This week's story has wings, literally. We're talking monarchs, milkweed, and the mountain of policy trying to save them. There are a few bugs that can make people stop mid-sentence and go, whoa, look at that. But the monarch butterfly, a total showstopper. Every fall, millions of orange and black wings take off in a migration so epic it deserves its own soundtrack. Welcome back to Beyond the Bill Number, where we dig into the laws behind the headlines and sometimes the wings behind the wonder. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Stephen, here to translate policy jargon into something slightly less painful.
And today we're talking about America's favorite migratory insect. Not my favorite, but America's, and the bills trying to keep them from fluttering off the map.
So, you got something against butterflies? I'm sure there's a story there.
I actually really don't like monarch butterflies. I think I might have what is considered a phobia of them.
Wow. Nobody has a phobia against butterflies.
Particularly monarchs, actually. I don't know if I really care about other butterflies. I can see other butterflies and I'm like, oh, monarchs. A butterfly. Mm-hmm. Yep,
all the monarch butterflies who are watching this podcast right now are going to be so upset.
Yes, when I was 14, I was in Mount Hood at a ski camp, and it was during a monarch migration, and they were everywhere. It was hordes and swaths and clouds, and they just were everywhere. Yeah, you might feel that way, but you don't feel that way. Not when their guts are all over your ski van windshield wipers because you can't even drive.
You're killing them.
I was not driving. I was 14. I was exposed to the trauma that someone else inflicted on me and these poor butterflies.
Wow.
And yeah, there was just so much dead butterfly everywhere, and it was so yucky, and I hated it. I'm working on getting over my insect phobias. I live where the air hurts my face because I don't like insects.
True.
But, this year I've been tackling my issues with spiders. I also have found 2 black widows this year, which I have never found before. So I'm not quite sure how this is working. But when I was planting some trees yesterday, I saw a really cute little fuzzy spider, and I said, hello, sir, and I did not get scared. And
excellent.
I'm doing a good job. I'm letting a spider live in my kitchen right now.
Good.
He's hunting, and
they will eat all the bad bugs.
Yeah.
You've named him. Good. That's always a good sign.
Yeah, so he's living. I will not be getting a monarch butterfly pet, though.
No. Well, but I mean, we're going to talk a lot about butterflies here, but just to talk more generally about pollinators. Pollination is obviously a crucial service that insects do for us, and they do it by and large by themselves. As long as we don't bother them, they will pollinate our flowers, they will pollinate our crops, and make sure that we actually have food to eat. And a large proportion of the food that we eat needs to be pollinated by insects, most of which are wild. Now, America, though, is an interesting case because in most places in the world, you have agriculture, and the farmers will pretty much rely on wild pollinators, which are bees, they are butterflies, but also a lot of flies as well. Hoverflies, for example, are big pollinators, and some animals as well. So some small mammals will actually be pollinators that wander around, carrying the pollen around. But generally, you rely on that just happening by itself. Now, occasionally you'll find farmers will encourage beekeepers to set up nearby so that there are bees around, or they may plant strips of wildflowers to attract the bees so that the bees will then pollinate their crops as well. But in America, because the agriculture is such a massive business and the farms tend to be so enormous, they've come with a different approach to doing this and making sure that you get all of your crops pollinated on time. So beekeepers in America, rather than keeping bees so that they can make honey and sell honey, they sell them for pollination services, and you can get about $1,000 a week per hive. And beekeepers will often have thousands of hives, so you can make a lot of money. And they will put their hives on trucks and planes and boats and ship them around the United States to where they're needed at certain times of the year. And the big one is the almond tree harvest in California. So
Mm-hmm.
every almond tree has millions of buds on it, and each of those buds need to be visited several times by a pollinator just to make sure that you actually get an almond growing out of it. And obviously, there are millions of trees in these
Yeah.
huge almond plantations, and it looks fantastic. If you look at all these array of blossoms and trees and things, it looks fantastic. But actually, from a biodiversity point of view, it's a desert. It's terrible because there's nothing there but almond trees, and almond trees only provide food for pollinators for a brief window of a few weeks a year. It means that pollinators can't survive there. So there are virtually no
Um,
natural pollinators in California, in this
oh
part
my
of California,
gosh.
because they starve to death. They starve to death the rest of the year because there's nothing to eat.
Wow.
So every single beekeeper in the country pretty much ships all of their bees to this one area of California every year to pollinate the almond trees. So if you go there, if you see a video of this and you can Google this, the air is just alive with billions and billions of bees. The buzzing,
Mm-mm.
you can barely hear yourself think because they're all going around pollinating all these trees. So it's quite an amazing operation, but it's
Wow.
also terrifying that that has
Yeah.
to happen because that's not the way the natural world is supposed to work. You shouldn't have to ship in pollinators. And also these are honeybees. So having this number of honeybees also drives away the natural pollinators that might otherwise be living there, even if they could live there, wouldn't be able to because the honeybees would be eating all their food. And
Yeah.
also the honeybees themselves are catching all of these unpleasant diseases. They are dying in droves because of pesticides that we'll talk about later. So it's a bit of a worrying situation, actually. Better to have a bit more diversity.
It's funny because I always thought you should not want to drink almond milk because of the water that it takes to make an almond.
Well,
And that's bad for the earth.
there's
And
that as
here we
well.
are
There's
with
that as
more
well.
things. And,
That's right.
I.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's
Oh,
the agriculture that goes on in those massive farms here in California. They are very problematic from an environmental point of view, all sorts of things. The water usage is another thing. They suck up vast amounts of water.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, that's just crazy. And I mean, monarch butterflies are one of our bigger pollinators, especially as they do
Yeah.
their migration. They can go to these different areas that need things at different times of year.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, this should be something that is done naturally. The world has
Hmm.
all the things that we need to support this, but because of humanity and what we'll get into here
Yeah.
in a sec of these chemicals, we're not able to do that and having to, come up with all these other methods. So, I
Hmm.
mean, let's talk about the trouble that the
Yeah.
monarch butterflies are in. They are in serious trouble, right?
Yes, it's not great news in butterfly land. So the monarchs have lost a lot of their breeding and feeding grounds thanks
Mm.
to disappearing milkweed, which is basically their entire nursery and buffet rolled into one. So one of the curious things about monarch butterflies is that they have to have milkweed to both feed and breed. They're not very sort of diverse eaters, let's say. They're quite fussy
Mm.
when it comes to their eating.
Picky.
So it must be milkweed. And milkweed obviously is a weed. So it's not something that people are planting necessarily automatically for any other purposes. So it's not like they
Hmm.
can find a field of milkweed and they're away, really. So if you have no milkweed, you have no monarchs.
Wow, okay. What's killing this milkweed that does exist then?
Yes, well, there's a triple threat. So this is similar to a lot of habitats for major pollinators. The first one being is herbicide-heavy agriculture. Now, that's particularly a particular problem in the United States. The agriculture lobby is extremely powerful, and they've resisted restrictions and bans on herbicides for a long time. So a lot of herbicides and pesticides that are banned elsewhere in the world are absolutely fine to use in the United States. But then you've also got overly tidy roadside maintenance. So milkweed will tend to grow in verges. So all the highways and roads that have grass verges down the side, they are great places for milkweeds and great place for these butterflies to actually get their feed. But if
Okay.
you are aggressively mow them, then
Mm.
your milkweed doesn't grow and it's not there
Okay.
as a food source for the butterflies. And then the final one, of course, is just good old fashioned urban sprawl. The more buildings you create, the more areas of the country that you tarmac over, the less space there is for the butterflies. So you've got farmers who are planting herbicide resistant crops, they're spraying broad spectrum weed killers, they're mowing before the milkweed can seed. If you add in manicured lawns, non native landscaping, which is seen more and more, and you've got migration with fewer pit stops every year for these butterflies. Let's just think about the monarch butterfly migration, because that's one of the reasons why monarchs are so iconic and so
Mm-hmm.
amazing, is that every year they will migrate from the United States all the way down to Mexico.
Yep.
One patch in Mexico, they'll masses of them concentrate on all these trees, they'll do their business, they'll come back again. And that's quite unusual for small insects of that kind that they will actually travel such huge distances. But on the way, they do need these pit stops so they can be feeding because butterflies actually eat quite a lot.
Wow. I did not know that they were so hungry. And the landscaping problem is a huge thing. We're thinking of
Yeah.
xeriscaping our front yard. And we
Hmm.
were talking about all these plants that we're going to plant that are native Colorado, Denver plants that are
Yeah.
good for pollinators.
Yes.
And my mom's allergic to bees. And she was like, oh, I don't know if you want to do that. And I was like, I think we do.
Yes, yes, you do. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Always, always go native plants when you can.
yes. Yeah. And less work for you. So,
Yes, absolutely.
okay. So this isn't just bad vibes.
Yes, that's right. So there is a lot of data on migration patterns and the numbers of monarchs, and it's not good. So eastern monarch numbers hit a historic low in 2023. There was less than a single hectare of overwintering forest in Mexico. So that's like, one soccer field of
Wow.
butterflies, where there used to be many, many more. They rebounded a little bit in 2024. There was 1.79 hectares, but it's still pretty grim news for the butterflies. Western monarchs, the ones that overwinter along California's coast, are down from millions to just a few hundred thousand now.
Wow.
Maybe that's by people driving over them. I don't know. That could be one of the things.
You know what? I'll call up my ski coach and tell him he's the problem with
Tell him.
America,
Tell him.
okay?
Tell him.
Okay, so the butterflies are in trouble either by ski team bans or all these other
Yeah.
things we talked about. What is the government doing about it, if anything?
Well, there's some good news. There's a lot of things happening actually. So
Okay.
December 2024, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service proposed listing monarchs as a threatened species under the Endangered Species Act, or
Mm.
ESA. They paired it with what's called a Section 4D rule, so basically a tailor-made rule book to help butterflies. The idea is to protect monarchs and their habitat without turning every farmer, road crew, or gardener into a potential ESA violator. So it's a
Mm.
softer carrot over stick approach. So
Mm.
this one of the problems with monarchs has been that they do need this milkweed, and milkweed is not something that people want growing in their gardens. It's not something that you want in road verges necessarily, or that farmers want in their fields. So this is a sort of softer approach, really saying you don't
Hmm.
have to do this, you don't have to protect milkweed, but we'd really like you to.
Okay, and that's pretty rare for federal regulation, right?
Yeah, particularly of this kind. So normally the ESA means thou shalt not disturb, but here the service is saying, hey, if you plant milkweed and nectar flowers, then you're in the clear. They're even proposing 4,395 acres of critical habitat along the California coast, which is quite a specific number, isn't it? I don't know when they hit it.
You know, that's exactly what was calculated to need for the hundred of thousands
Yeah,
instead of the millions.
that's probably it. That's probably
Okay,
it.
so that's on the federal side. That seems pretty good. But states
Yeah.
are also kind of getting in on this action too, right?
Yes, absolutely. So 2025 is shaping up to be the year of the monarch in state legislatures. And we're not talking here about Donald Trump wanting to be a king for a change. So we have 33 bills across the country, each tackling a different piece of the puzzle.
All right, well, let's hit the highlights. Where are lawmakers actually flapping their wings?
Well, let's start with Pennsylvania's HB 426. It would require state agencies to plant and maintain pollinator habitats on public land and along roadsides. So think of it as turning every highway into a rest stop for monarchs.
Oh, I love that. Butterfly rest area next 2 miles. Turn off your windshield
Exactly.
wipers.
Absolutely, absolutely. Leave them alone. Then there's California's AB 1311, which focuses on protecting rangeland and grasslands, those big open spaces that double as nectar corridors, obviously, as long as they haven't gone up in smoke. Then you have North Carolina's S329, which goes in a slightly different direction. It's a trail system bill that folds in pollinator corridors, basically, hike here, help butterflies there.
Wow, I really like that idea. Okay, so those are the habitat bills, but there's another problem also that the plants themselves can be toxic.
Absolutely, yes. Unfortunately, that is true. Some nurseries sell pollinator-friendly milkweed that's actually soaked in neonicotinoid pesticides, or neonics, which are terrible for insects. So
Mm.
neonics is something that people may well have heard of because it's been a very controversial issue. The neonics are probably the worst possible pesticide for bees in particular, but other
Oh,
pollinators more broadly. You put a little bit of that on your field and it will just kill everything. And they're banned in most places. So they're banned all over Europe, certainly banned in the UK. But the various sort of activists who've been trying to get them banned in the US have so far failed because the agriculture lobby is obviously very powerful. So neonics are fine in the United States, if not anywhere else. So New Jersey's A3017 would actually ban these pesticide-laced plants from retail shelves. And other states are eyeing similar bans or labeling rules, syncing up with that federal 4D rule pushing for safer planting.
Okay, all right. Alarming. So states are protecting habitat and trying to fix this plant supply. And in some cases, they're going kind of big picture. What's happening in New York?
Well, New York's taking a comprehensive approach with A1819 and S3163, which would create a full-blown monarch preservation plan. It directs the Department of Environmental Conservation to coordinate mowing schedules, utility right-of-way vegetation, and native planting standards across the state. So it's a systems-level plan instead of just a series of one-off projects.
All right, I like it. Organized chaos for the butterflies.
Exactly. Yes, that's what you want. A bit of wilderness. And then you've got symbolic bills, like you've got Michigan, Wisconsin, California. They've all declared the monarch the official state butterfly or created a Western Monarch Week.
Ah, all right. Those sound fluffy, but they're not pointless.
Well, I mean, they could actually help. So once you crown a butterfly as the state symbol, it's politically awkward to underfund its habitat or promote policies that are actually going to end up with them all dying. So public attention can equal budget justification.
I feel like politically awkward is something we need to start saying all the time on this because that just seems a little on the nose. Okay, so this isn't just a state-by-state issue. Congress is in on this whole vibe.
Yes, so meet the Monarch Act of 2025, a federal bill that would pour millions into restoring overwintering sites and building migration corridors, especially in the West. It's meant to dovetail with the ESA listing and state-level efforts like AB 1311 and HB 426.
Okay, so the federal rule sets the floor and then states build on top of that. A very popular way we kind of see legislation happening in our patchwork of a nation. But does this actually all fit together?
Well, mostly, yes, it would. It's a surprisingly coordinated effort. The 4D rule is written to encourage these state projects, not block them. So Pennsylvania's roadside milkweed, New Jersey's clean plant rules, New York's big preservation plan, they all just slot right in.
All right. Well, I'm guessing that there are some political landmines.
Yes, well, absolutely. You're fighting against the big agro businesses. So agriculture and mosquito control programs want to make sure that pesticide use isn't restricted. And you can't really argue with killing mosquitoes, no matter how much you like insects. Conservation groups do worry that the exceptions might go too far. On the West Coast in particular, where critical habitat is being proposed, local planners have to juggle wildfire safety, which we've already discussed, and development as well, a desperate need for new homes.
Ooh, okay, that sounds like it's butterflies versus bureaucracy.
Yes, exactly. Well, hopefully the butterflies can win this round, and hopefully human beings can learn to cohabit a little bit more with these beautiful flutterbys, as they used to be.
All right, before we wrap, what does real progress here look like? How will we know if these bills are working?
Well, we'll see it in the data and we'll see it in the dirt. So you've got roadside and utility corridors seeded with native flowers and milkweed, garden centers selling pesticide-free plants that are actually pesticide-free, overwintering groves in California with better canopy cover, and most importantly, eastern monarch populations stabilizing at a multi-hectare levels instead of crashing.
All right, well, that sounds like the monarch comeback story. Ready to take on this legislative adventure.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, if the bill pass, of course, which, well, there's always that, isn't there? So the ESA sets the stage, states fill in the details. Together, they give this migration a fighting chance.
Okay, well, thanks for listening to Beyond the Bill Number. You can read the full blog and track every butterfly-related bill that we mentioned at BillTrack50.com.
And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share, especially with that one friend who won't stop talking about their pollinator garden.
We keep it factual, funny, and sometimes just a little bit fluttery.
Indeed. Catch you next time and keep looking beyond the bill number.